Hello and welcome, fellow Wasteland survivors. I'm Dean. Thanks for stopping in, hanging out with me for Fallout 76 Camp Tips and Tricks, where in today's video it's all about the electrical conduits. We're going to take a look at 3 different build ideas using these electrical conduits. The first one that we're going to take a look at today is how to create this pretty cool railing using electrical conduits. Alright, we've got a lot to do today, so let's jump right into it. Before we get started, let's take a look at some of these conduits and see what some of them are used for, just in case you're not familiar with them. Now, we can find the conduits in the power connectors section. There are 2 different categories or rows or variances of the different types of conduits. On the first variance or row, we're going to find mostly power connection type conduits. We'll even see this upright conduit that has a part that will penetrate a wall that we can connect a wire to. This is a great way to run power in or out of your building. Now, one thing that you do need to know about this particular conduit is you can't actually target it on the outside. To run a wire to it or from it, you'll have to target it on the inside on the upright part of this particular conduit. Also, there's a couple of other lights and more power connections that are going down. Now, the second row has quite a few things here. Differences. One of them being this radiator. Now, there are 2 different kinds of radiators. Once you've connected this up to your conduit line and to power, it will radiate power out into your camp so that you can put up lighting. The first one that we saw was going down. This radiator will be power going up. So if you put those in, you can actually add power in, or lighting into your camp without using the electrical conduits that you would connect to the walls or ceilings. Also, we have a few other junctions in this variance, as well as another different type of upright. We've got a couple of curved pieces. We'll be using some of these, and here's the other upright. Now, this upright won't go through walls like the other upright does, but what it's really good for is actually running power through ceilings or floors. If you'll put a junction up on top of your floor or ceiling, you can easily snap a conduit to it from the top or the bottom. Now, if you snapped it from the bottom, it would go up, but we want it to snap at the top. That way now it will go through the ceiling and down farther into our build. Once again, you can do this through the floor as well. Takes a little bit of maneuvering around, adjusting, but it'll pop in there and connect. And you can go ahead and put another connector up down here if you want. Connect your power up, run it up to the ceiling, whatever you want to do. The ideas are limitless. Alright, now when you first lay some of these conduits out, you may find it difficult to snap other conduits to it. The reason is because it is sinking into the foundation or the floor a little bit. Well, one way to get it up out of the floor is to snap a connector or a junction to it. Once you do, click on it, it will pop up out of the floor. Now you can go ahead and place the other conduit back on it. Once you've done this, it's actually lifted the conduit up off the floor, and it's really floating. Now, it doesn't look like it, but it is. Because of it floating, we can actually snap other conduits onto it easily now. Also, we could move the floor or foundation away without taking the conduit with it. What I really enjoy about these conduits is how versatile they are. One example is right here. We can actually set these conduits on quite a few different objects, tables, containers, etc. Here is a great example. We've got a conduit on a table. Now, if we move the table around, the conduit that's sitting on it will move around with it. But if we put up a marker, we can go ahead and re-snap our conduit back to it. And now we have a conduit floating in the air the height of that table. Once again, extremely versatile. They'll set on almost anything. I can't really think of anything right now offhand that they just won't set on. Ceilings, floors, walls, containers, shelves, I mean a lot of different things. Also, all of these conduits will react in the same way, just like this upright. We can see it's sitting on top of this particular stash box, and if we move the stash box around, the conduit will move with it. Now, there's a couple of things that we can do because of knowing this. One of the things that we might want to do is do something higher up in the air. So we can use the upright to do the same thing. We can connect a conduit to it, move the upright away, and that particular conduit will float. Now, one great use for doing this is, let's say you've got a place where you can't connect a light. Well, you could put up a conduit and any ceiling mounted light will attach to it. You can also, if you work with it a little bit, get quite a few of the wall mounted lights to go up there as well. Also, if you mess around, you can get some signs and some lettering to go up there too. So really work with this. You can get a lot of things to go up on that conduit. Also, if you've placed items on the conduit, it's easy to move it to an area and snap it up with all of your objects still on it. Also, not only does it work with anything connected to the bottom of the conduit, if you can set something on top of the conduit, you can also move it around and the object that's setting on top of the conduit. This really opens up a lot of ideas for a lot of different things that we can build in our camp. Alright, let's get started on our railing. Now, I've already placed a junction down and put it where it needs to be for this to work. What we've done is we've lined it up between those two different colored boards right in the center of the pipe part of the junction. Next, what we're going to want to do is run some conduits down the length or the width of the floor to make sure that we've got this adjusted in as close as we can possibly get it. If this is off a little bit, you can get away with it, but if it starts getting off too far, one or more of our metal posts are not going to want to snap up. So by putting a few of these conduits onto the other side, we can see if it matches up with our junction that we've just placed in. Alright, now since we spent a lot of time getting our junction in just the right spot, let's put a marker on it. That way, just in case we make a mistake later on in the build, we can always come back to this point and start over again. I'll put a marker one conduit away from our junction. That way we don't have snapping issues while we're moving our junction around. Now, we'll bring over a container or table of your choice, because you can really use anything that you want and make this as high or as low as you want. Once we've got our container beside our junction, if we take out an upright and we move around here a little bit, we will get this upright to snap onto the junction through the container. And there we go. Alright, now we can go ahead and move our junction out of the way. Now, you need to stand still while you're doing this, but if you click on the upright, it will pop straight up and set up on top of the container. Once again, do not move or you'll throw it off. Now we can go ahead and put our junction back onto our upright and go ahead and put a marker on this one as well. This is actually the first pipe or the first rail in our railing. Now let's go ahead and get our second rail up. Now, to place the second rail up, it's super easy. Just go ahead, take your upright off the junction that you have up right now, get your second container or table, bring it over, and place it beside the junction, just like you did on the floor. Now you can go ahead, grab your upright, snap it through the container onto the junction, and once you've done that, just rinse and repeat. Move the junction out of the way, don't move, and click on your upright, pop straight up, and now we have our second rail of our railing. Now we just go ahead and put our junction on, so that way we can start snapping the rest of our conduits up. Once you've gotten conduits around 3 sides of the build, don't complete it. Stop. There's still a couple of more things we need to do. First, we need to check and make sure our metal posts are going to snap in without colliding with the conduits. I've already done that. Now what I'd like to do is snap these posts farther into the corner. But the only place that these metal posts will snap onto a foundation is right in the middle on the sides. So we need some new snap points. Well, to do that, we've added on an extra foundation, and we'll snap some stairs onto it inverted. Now this will allow us to put some floors up where we can cover the foundations below us. Once we've matched these floors up with the foundation below, it gives us some new snap points for our metal posts, and we can go ahead and put them all up. Also, this is another great opportunity to make sure all of these posts go in without colliding with the conduits. If our first conduit we put in is slightly off, we might not be able to snap in 1, 2, or more of these posts as we go around. Alright, well, we're almost done. We've got a couple of conduits and a metal post left to go, but we can't put those in yet because there's still something else we need to do before we do that. We'll go ahead and we'll take our floors out, and then we'll get into the wall section and pull out a wall of your choice. It really doesn't matter. Now, if we'd have had the conduits up and around all the way, we may not have been able to snap that wall in. That's why we haven't completed it yet. Now what we're getting ready to do is a trick that we've seen in our Dude, Where's My Camp build series, where we show all kinds of build ideas and tips and tricks. So if you're not familiar with that series or you'd like to check it out, there is a link for it flashing somewhere on the screen, and I'll also put one in the description below. We're not going to explain the tip and how it works in this video because we have other videos that we've explained that in. But we are going to use the tip. Now that we've got our floating marker in for our roof, all we need to do is complete the rest of our conduits, add in a floor to our stairs so we can snap a metal post on, and now we've got all of our conduits all the way around our build, and it's ready for our roof to go in. Now we can go ahead and snap them all in, and we'll snap all 4 corners in, and once we do, we can take this corner out, and now we're able to place another eave in so it matches up all the way across the inside of our roof. And then all we have to do is place the corner roof back in, and binga banga bunga, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. A cool little like awning type build, I guess, a gazebo type build with our own railings around it. Now the reason this worked is because we offset our junction when we first started. In other words, some of the conduits on 2 of the walls are on the inside, but the conduits run on the outside of the metal posts on the other 2 walls. And here we can see the conduits running on the outside of the metal posts. By offsetting the conduits with the floor, this is what allowed us to snap the metal posts in without them colliding with the conduits. And that looks pretty cool. Now, let's make an entrance. First thing we need to do is store a few of these conduits and a couple of the metal posts that are located in the front of the build. We also stored a couple of our ceilings or our roofs. Because of doing that, we're able to snap a stair on to one of the foundations inside of the build. Now we can go ahead and snap a couple of floors up, and this gives us two different snap locations. The first snap location is for our metal posts once we've completed our entrance so that they can go back up. The second snap point is off of this half a floor. So we'll go get our trusty wall out and we'll snap the top of this wall to the floor. Now we can go ahead and store the floor if we want to. That doesn't really matter. What matters is now that we've got a floating wall, we can snap a foundation to it, and we have a foundation that's offset by half the width of a normal foundation, and that should give us a pretty cool little step up to our gazebo. Alright, now we'll go ahead and put another floor back up in place of the half a floor, and all we need to do is put our conduits in the way that we want them to go in. Now, I know I say this all the time, ladies and gentlemen, but it's true. There's really a lot of ways that you can do these tips and tricks. So I hope you get creative if you're trying them. There's really some pretty cool things that you can come up with if you spend a little time and work with it. And here in a little later in the video, we're going to see some. Alright, now that we've got our conduits in the way that we want them, we can go ahead and put our metal posts up back where they were at. We can go ahead and take our floors out. We no longer need them. And let's get our stairs out and put our roof back up. And then let's see how that looks. Alright, that does look good. I really like how clean it looks. Now, I did try to put a couple of the metal posts up on the sides of these curved conduits, but because the conduits are offset to one side, it kind of looked weird, or to me it looked weird. Now, it did work, but I didn't like it, so I thought maybe a couple of these street lights to go in to help frame the doorway or the walkway into our gazebo. The guys have been talking about putting a pool table in there. Yeah, I don't know what that's all about, but yeah, whatever. At this point, it's ready for decorating and lighting. Speaking of lighting, in the beginning of this video, I showed how we could connect ceiling-mounted lights to these conduits. Here, real quick, what I'd like to do is show that you can put some wall-mounted lights on them as well. Now, it does take a little bit of finagling and a little maneuvering around, but you can get them on there. And here we can see what maybe the candle lights would look like. But we're not going to use those. The next two build ideas are going to require this mock-up to help simulate what a two-story building would be like on the inside. We've got foundations, two walls, and a ceiling. The stairs and the two floors that are connected to it are only here temporary. They're here so that we can set our conduits down on them and get them a certain height off the foundation below. Now, we saw from the beginning of this video that when we put these conduits down on the floor, they sink into the floor or the foundation. And since these floors are temporary, we need to get them up off the floor so that when we take the floors away, the conduits don't go with it. Now, there's two ways we can do this. The first way, snap a couple of markers up to our full-length conduits, put a couple of these junctions up, click on them, pop them up out of the floor, put our conduits, our markers, back on them, and then we can snap our conduits, full-length conduits, to our markers. And once we've done that, those conduits will now be floating on the top of the floor. And we can move the floors in and out or store them whenever we want to. So let's go ahead and put our full length conduits up. And now let's move a floor to check and make sure, and yep, we can move the floor. The conduit is staying behind. Now, we'll see the second way in here in just a second. But there's a reason why we still need the floor in. And that is because we're going to go to the electrical conduits. And we're going to put a couple of these on top of the conduit piping. Now, we might be able to put these on here without the floor underneath of it. But why take the chance? Let's just keep the floor under it. That way we know we can put these conduits wherever we want them on the conduit pipe, and we won't have any problems with that. Once we've got these conduits down where we want them, now we'll put some more conduits up above attached to the ceiling. Also, by keeping the floor in, it gives us a place to walk, and we're not constantly falling down to the foundation. So we'll put a couple of these other conduits up, and we'll attach a wire to the ones that are on top of the conduit pipe. Now, what my idea here is to create like a support that a light could be attached to. And these are the supports, or the wires that it's attached to, hanging down. So what we need to do is align these conduits up so that the wires are straight up and down, side to side, and front to back. Now, when we take the floor out and the marker, we now have something that looks like it's hanging from the ceiling. And we can attach any ceiling mounted light to that we would like to. And just for shits and giggles, let's just put this one up. Why not? Alright, now the second way we can achieve the same results is by actually placing our conduit down on the foundation and then putting our electrical conduits on top of it right here. It does the same thing that we did up on the floor. Since we have a marker in already where this conduit needs to go, all we have to do is just select it, the conduits come with it, and then we can snap it to our marker. Then just connect the wiring up to the electrical conduits on the ceiling. We got the same result doing it a different way. It really doesn't matter how you do it. I just wanted to show both different ways. And now we've got a pretty cool look for lights to hang off of, and they're not all the way up at the ceiling. Now, the second idea that I have can be done a little bit different, but it's about the same way. What we're going to do is we're going to place this junction down on the floor. This plus is a pretty good one, this 4-way. It's easy to line up. You can do it from corners or even out in the center. Now we'll take an upright, snap an upright to it, and then we can take the same junction and snap it to the top of it. Now we have another marker to snap other conduits onto it. And we'll take a second and do that. I've got something kind of cool in mind. And there we go, fellow wastelanders, something that might look like a chandelier. Now for the painstaking task of trying to decide what damn lights to put up here to make that look even cooler. Because there are so many options to choose from between the ceiling hanging lights and the wall mounted lights. The options here are really endless. Plus, there's a lot of other ways we could run our conduits and maybe even make our frame look cooler as well. Here's another option that we could use, the fancy light. That would snap up there. Lots of options. But I decided to go with these high-tech lights, or as we call them in Fallout 4, high-tech lights. I don't know what we call them in Fallout 4. Why did I even say that? But we can get a good look and see what that looks like. That's awesome. Let's put our other light back up over here. Now I'm all wondering to myself what we called them in Fallout 4. I think they were called high-tech lights. I think. Who knows? What the hell? Whatever. They're in there. They look pretty cool. And whatever. Let's snap this multi-light up here. Now, also keep this in mind, guys and gals. Even though I used a full-length conduit for the first part of this demonstration, you could really use anything there that you would like. You could use the half, the quarter. You could even use the junctions. I've placed the junctions with the wire connectors up and then a few of the conduits out to make like a plus. That looks super sexy. There's a lot of ways that you can do this to dress up your build. Before we end today's video, I'd like to remake our chandelier over again, but do it a little bit differently. What I've done is I've added our floors back in. We're placing down a 4-way junction and lining it up where we want it. Now we'll take a few other conduits and reduplicate the chandelier design that we used earlier. Now there's a couple of things that I need to point out why I'm doing that. First of all, the conduits that are connected to the center 4-way are not connected to the floor. Only the 4-way that we first put in is sitting on the floor. Everything else is floating. Second of all, for the items that I want to put in here, we need a floor underneath of it so that they'll set on top of these conduits. And what my idea is to use some of these candles. Now we could use the oil lamps if we wanted to or whatever. As long as we could get it to set up on top of these conduits, we could use it. Now, this is a pretty cool look, but it's not overall a great idea. First of all, every candle is considered a light, and it takes up 1% of your budget. Second of all, it's going to take quite a bit of the candles to make it look cool, so that's a pretty big budget eat up right there. Now, the other thing that I didn't like about using the candles is they don't really shed a lot of light. So other than it looked cool, it didn't really give us any lighting effect that I could really notice. And therefore, even though it looks cool, it's kind of useless as far as producing any kind of light. Well, there we go, fellow Wastelanders. I hope today's video gave you some sweet ideas and inspired you to build something pretty cool in your camp. I thank you all for stopping in, hanging out with me for Fallout 76 camp build tips and tricks all about conduits. I look forward to seeing you all on the next video and or stream. And just like always, everyone, please, until next time, stay safe and peace.